Um, my apologies if you were here on time and I wasn't. It's 100% on me. I even kept my guest, Hector Baresi, waiting today, and I am so sorry. Hector,
Not a problem.
thank you so much for being here. And could you do a quick favor and just introduce yourself before we dive into our topic today?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much, Kelly, for inviting me to this event. I think it's so important to talk about enterprise AI, and I've been helping mid-market company for the last 2 years in this area. My background, it's with the large guys, with 20 years plus as an executive with General Electric, Honeywell, Danaher, IDEX, and a few others in 6 countries. And my common denominator in terms of my missions and leadership roles has been really new technologies, breakthroughs, um, whether it was getting into the new technologies, deploying, embracing, or innovating around in breakthroughs like IoT, artificial intelligence, wireless technologies, Industry 5.0, robotics. So I've been working in this environment for more than 20 years in those companies. And for the last 3 years, I have been helping as an advisor and consultant mid-market CEOs in business transformation, and most lately, business transformation through artificial intelligence. So I'm glad to be
Ah,
here today.
right. So you basically have always been on the cutting edge. Um, you're
Yeah, I would say that the main reason why all these companies called me was with that particular mission to be on the edge of new technologies, adoptions, dealing with the really the value proposition, because there is a lot of shiny object syndrome every time the new technology emerges. And with AI, I think we are embracing probably the largest technology breakthrough in the last 100 years. Maybe this people may
maybe
disagree, but
even more.
and
In a way, maybe even more.
and
So
AI is going to drive so much transformation, and that's why I made it sort of my mission to help these companies understand it, because so far it's being understood mostly as a technology game, where when we talk about testing and experimenting, it's being more of a technology game rather than a value based evaluation.
mhm.
And then most of the statistics that you hear about 80 to 90% of AI projects failing with an amazing cost. I mean, Deloitte just published a report that the average cost of an AI abandoned project is about $4 million. It may not apply to every company out there, but even the Walmarts, the Ubers, the Microsofts, these large companies have also reported failing projects, and you will
So
think that they can fail too. So AI has its tricks. You need to understand a number of things before you really embark in an AI project in order to make it successful.
it's so yes, I mean yes and yes. We are peopletransformation.ai seeing where people are having issues with like making those pilots go and work and actually become, if not profitable, usable, right? And not a loss leader. So can you tell me, why do you think so many AI initiatives stall after the pilot or after the testing stage?
Sure. And I did touch a little bit a minute ago when I talked about these pilots or experiments, and different companies give them different names, but the ones that you're going to hear the most is experiments and pilots. And believe me, I've been to many panels, discussions, AI summits, and AI conferences, and I keep hearing these words, right? And I keep asking why the companies use the words, and they tell me, well, we want to evaluate technology, we want to learn, we want to see what's out there. There are so many different ideas. So one of the reasons why this transition from pilots, assuming that the pilots are successful, because many pilots also fail, but assuming the pilot is successful, is first of all, it was considered successful. Why? What were the KPIs or the success factors? We created these beautiful dashboards we automated this process and now it takes less time, or we have eliminated one person here and there. So they consider that successful at pilot level. Now, if you are, let's say, a pharmaceutical company, or you are a chemical company, and you have your pilot plant where you are experimenting for the creation of new products, new substances, or new drugs, then you claim success for that pilot. But now you need to build the plant. Now you need to really make this product at scale and sell it out and make sure that volume, quality, you have to be reproducible. You have to replicate the same quality that you achieved in the concept. And when you talk about AI, now you have claimed success based on those KPIs, and now you need to, and I'm going to use a word that is difficult to pronounce, it, operationalize that pilot, means bringing into the business and drive an impact.
Right.
And that impact many times is not clearly defined, because you were just playing with technology. Remember what I said, we want to learn, we want to test the platform. What was the initial value that you intended to create? Well, that many times is not defined. So one of the first reasons why the scaling fails is because the pilot didn't have a particular value creation associated. It was mainly a tech test. Second is assuming that you did get the value right. Now, are you going to add AI to processes, SOPs, and organizations that were developed or created in 1998? Or are you going to reshape your operating system and your organization to adopt the AI that you created and take advantage? So many companies also fail because they don't have, the courage, or they have not foreseen that you cannot continue to operate like in 1999, right? And up until now, it was possible, it was actually tolerated, but AI exacerbates, AI amplifies frictions, issues, broken processes. So now you want to scale this pilot into operational roles and functions and efficiencies, and you're going to fail because your organization isn't ready, your systems are not ready, and your SOPs cannot support it. So this is an accumulation of effects in terms of planning, scaling, the courage, and the vision to reorganize your SOPs, and ultimately what I call the company operating system to really adopt AI. And as you can see, it's a combination of factors that really prevent many companies from really succeeding with AI at scale.
Okay, so you are bringing people in, bringing AI in, and showing people how to turn it from just a technical experiment into a financial engine. And you just brought up several stages that people need to go through, or companies need to go through. So tell me this, like, tell me where people and culture actually come into what you do, how it can make or break an adoption of AI, and what gets underestimated when it comes to change management that brings all of those pieces together that you just spoke of.
Right. So let's remember that businesses, companies, large and small, whether you are in B2B or B2C, business are still people, right? There's not the offices, the computers, the desks, and the lights and the fixtures. It's still people, right?
Right.
What you do with AI ultimately will be installed, used, adopted, and supported and maintained by people. So assuming that now with AI, people are taking a secondary role is a big mistake that many companies do. And I'm not even referring to those that consider that with AI, they are going to lay off X number of people. That's just one of the mistakes. But the fact that they assume that everybody is going to embrace and adopt AI, and that they are all going to be happy learning and going through AI training, And then they go to they think it's an HR problem that okay, we need to put together 2 or 3 AI trainings and here bring everybody up to speed. Um, when you look at one of the latest Gallup reports, they mentioned that about 40 to 50% of employees have some level of rejections to AI in their business, in their jobs, for a number of reasons: ethical, being afraid of losing their jobs, and there is some level of pride of ownership. People think that why AI is going to know more than I do in making decisions in my behalf, and so again, it's an accumulation of factors: fear of being laid off, rejection to innovation, egos that get hurt because now AI may decide on my behalf. The fact that you were planning to become the head of a department that will be eliminated because of AI. So there are so many elements that may again conflict with your plans, you as a CEO, to bring AI within the organization. So this has to be really very well planned. As I always say, it's always start at the top with the CEO communicating with their executive team and the executive team communicated down through the organization. Always starts with why are we doing this? What is the vision that is driving this transformation, and how is it going to help the business, and how this benefit is going to help all of the employees? Right? And what is what we are going to do, and what is that we are not going to do with AI, right? So clarity, communication, and then you talk about the training, and then you talk about eventually, reorganizing, etc. But you cannot ignore the fact that you have to deal with the culture, and obviously, then there is all the other issues that you have Gen Zs and you have baby boomers in the same organization, and some are going to be more open to AI than others, right? And it may not be the way that you think. Some boomers are more open than Gen Zs to AI. So you also need to look at your generational organization and think how we're going to communicate and deploy AI in your business.
Yes. So you have a 7 work stream process for change. And I know you've touched on some of it. But can you lead us through that? Because I think that's where those CEOs really need to be thinking about what you do and where and how you're going to change things financially when you have that whole work stream. Would you like to go through that whole thing?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
This is the methodology I use with my clients to help them navigate the AI journey, and I even put together an assessment that allows me to show them how they score actually, right? So, and this 7 start with the AI strategy, where basically it means you have already a strategic plan for your business for the say 1, 3, 5 years where you want to be before AI. And now it's important that you are really looking at AI, how AI is going to contribute to that accomplishment, to those achievements for your strategic plan. It's not that you now change your strategic plan for AI, but you really embrace AI to help you accelerate the execution and accomplishment of the strategic plan. So your AI strategy ideally should support your strategic plan, first element. The question that you come afterwards is how, where, and through what. This is the second pillar, which is the AI value. And your strategic plan is typically going to address a few areas, right? Like revenue growth, geographic penetration, innovation, acquisitions, etc., right? And now you really need to see through the second pillar, which is the value. Where is this AI compounding effect going to help you with revenue growth, innovation? For example, if you really lack in innovation and your product vitality is low, how is AI going to help you understand better customer needs, jobs to be done, competition, the way that the markets, the microeconomy and the macroeconomy are going to move in the next 3 years, so you can innovate in a different way. So just to give you an example, but it could be cost improvement, quality, customer satisfaction, etc. So how is AI going to satisfy and support your strategic plan? That's the second. The third one is we talk about the organization. You can't think just about the technical aspects and the EBITDA and the revenue. This is going to be done through people. So you can't ignore the organization, which is talked about. And the processes that may be eliminated, and that how the new business is going to look like. I had an example very recently of a company that it was very financially driven. Some companies are very engineering driven, others are more financially driven. This one had a lot of CPAs and controllers, and it was the CFO, and there were analysts, and they were extremely happy that they have come up with an agent that would do a lot of financial analysis and do a lot of reporting, and it would put some projections and post-mortem, etc. And now they were at the pilot level, but they couldn't operationalize it because what? Now they had to reorganize. There were too many finance people in that organization. And this new agent had eliminated a number of spreadsheets. I mean, they were an heavily Excel-based organization. They didn't need any more of those Excel. And all these Excel gurus that were so good at pivot tables, which I hate, like pivot tables. Now, what were they going to do with all that organization? That was, again, I like to joke about, but it's 1999 organization. So that dilemma kind of made them strike the brakes, and they ultimately didn't go from pilot to operational because they had to let go some people, and they were not ready to it. So the organization, you need to think what your organization is obviously going to look like differently when AI comes to play in your team. So the organization, the people, the culture, they are all part of the same game, and they cannot be analyzed separately. They are part of the same element. So that's pillars number 3 and 4. Number 5, governance. Governance is a word that now we have become more familiar with, because in the past with ESG, the G stands for governance. And now everybody talks about AI governance. Why? Because everybody is afraid that AI will take over the world, and the hallucinations and all these movies that we have seen. And there may be something which really may happen at some point. But governance is basically a set of rules, standard practices, guardrails, and ownership, right? Where it is when you talk about the organization or the governance, you always look at the ownership. Who is going to own ultimately the use of AI, and how it's going to be used, and ultimately what results is going to deliver, and how you measure. Because again, part of the new operating system is that some of your KPIs are going to be useless than the old ones, and then you have to create new KPIs, right? And governance also helps you with this aspect of creating guardrails, tripwires, and new KPIs that will allow you to make sure that AI doesn't go crazy, but also that you develop AI properly. You may have heard this case a few weeks ago, this company that developed internally an agent that on its own deleted 1,200 contact names from their database, basically eliminated the whole database of this company, and it also deleted the backup. And it took them weeks, at least 7 days or more, to recover through some workarounds all these contacts that the agent had deleted. Now, when you go and do some forensics, seems that the agent was developed using Vibe code by the person that was not necessarily a programmer of AI. The site that hosted the agent didn't have all the guardrails to recommend that the backup should have been on a different volume, not at the same the original database. So the agent deleted everything as opposed to being in different buckets. So it was a list of conspiring bad decisions that led to this problem. And it would have been as simple as having one piece of paper, call it governance, that would have said, these are this, this is the way this agent is going to be programmed or created. These are all the checkpoints that are going to have. These are the way that the information is going to be stored. And these are the permissions that the agent will have. Like, you will never delete anything without my permission. Would have been a great thing to do if you had been reading on a piece of paper.
Isn't it kind of like a checklist? When you get on an airplane, if you're a pilot, you would never fly without that checklist. And we are doing a lot of things by the seat of our pants when it comes to AI right now. And
the other day, somebody made a comparison about the plane.
And it's like all you have to do is exactly what you just said, like stop for just a second. Put together.
And on the airplane, you do all the checking, and then the takeoff is done by the pilot. Then the autopilot does the boring part, right? Flying to destination. But then landing, now you turn off the autopilot and you land manually, right? So you need to be sure that there is still human intervention and guardrails and checkpoints to prevent. And this is governance. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Right. One page, like you said. And then, sorry, after governance, I cut right in on you.
Okay, so let's keep going. After governance, we have the sixth pillar is engineering, which is very connected to data, because engineering, again, means now you have to operationalize, like struggling with that word, your pilot. Let's say you completed the pilot, you are happy with this, but now this pilot has to go back to the chemical plant. Now you have to build the big chemical plant. Now you are Dow Chemicals and you're producing all these compounds. Then you have to build the big plant. What do you need? You need to engineer this plant and build it, right? And this is the job of the AI engineers, that they have to transform that basic pilot or experiment into something that can be installed. And install means really integrated into existing systems. You have to create human interfaces. You need to connect databases, whether you're going to do it in the cloud, on the edge, and where it's going to run. And IT people really love to talk about workloads and Kubernetes and all these type of things. And then you have to consider the cybersecurity aspect of this. So it's a complete next level that you're really going to bring this IT engineering, AI engineering talent to play to make it happen. Because that could be another limiting factor. When at the beginning of the conversation, you asked me, why some of these pilots don't turn into reality. Well, this could be another barrier. How do you turn this little thing into something that really works at enterprise scale? And not everybody can do it, right? So then you really need excellence in AI engineering. And the seventh pillar, which is kind of at the base, if there was a pyramid, right, starting with the strategy at the top, you have data at the bottom. Because data is really the food that AI uses to produce. What do you expect actually with AI, right? You produce automation, or you use it for decision support, for strategic planning. You use it for as a partner. Sometimes, CEOs use AI as a partner when they really have difficult decisions and a lot of data to be crunched. But it's always about data crunching, data gathering, data processing, correlation. The data is the food that really AI uses. And not forget, AI is software at the end of the day, and software is a program that uses data to produce an output. So bad data, bad output. And when you talk about data, there are many ways to look at it. Yeah. Another real life case I have is a client that developed a fantastic market data intelligence, or data intelligence data agent, so to speak, how they call it. which I baptized data silo because it was product management. They have put together this fantastic agent that would collect data from the competitors, from the market, from their customers. It would do automatic voice of the customer. It would go through websites of the big Deloitte's and McKinsey's, and it developed such a great vault of data that would feed their product roadmap for years. But they were not sharing that data with engineering. That's why I call it a silo, right? There was a data silo contained within product management. Sales and marketing, they didn't know about this. And how were they sharing that? In the 1999 fashion, in the quarterly meeting, through emails, through some casual conversations at the coffee machine. And that was either forgotten, ignored, or considered like, some interesting information. It was considered mostly interesting, but not essential. And at the same time, engineering was playing with their own engineering AI tool, and marketing and sales were playing with their own go-to-market agent. And one way or another, they were all collecting market data. So now we had three different AIs competing, trying to win the battle of who knows more about the next product roadmap that we need to embrace. So this really became a political game where every time product management was proposing a new product roadmap, engineering would say, wait a minute, my data, engineering data, which I collected through my AI experiment, is telling me otherwise. And sales and marketing that were also working on their own thing, they would say, well, through my go-to-market AI agent, we understood that our competitors are doing something different. So if our competitors are not going in that direction, why should we? Our intelligence, my data, this is the third set of data, is telling me something different.
Wow.
So when I was called to to bring some common sense, we went through a 5-day exercise that I call it, 5-day audit, and we ultimately ended up using the product management tool as the gold standard, and the other two were opposed, the other two competing. Why? Because it made sense. It was the most accurate, the most current, and a number of other reasons. But it took some effort, some time to make sure that we were agreeing on what set of data we were going to use, why, and how we were going to keep that data current. Because let's not forget, AI still hallucinates. And we're going back to governance. So we also had to instill some governance into that product management tool to make sure that it was trusted, that it was used and supported by the rest of the organization. But data could be, your best friend or your worst enemy when you try to deploy AI.
That's quite the example, because I never really thought about it that way, but I do see people doing it. Like, I see it happening in companies a lot, but it just never occurred to me to put it together the way you look at something, which is, it is true. When they're all working in different silos, you've got 3 AI tests running, 3 AI pilots running in a way, and it's a battle of the bots, quite frankly. So
my conversation with the CEO is all about, well, how did this happen? And specifically in this case. And he says, well, I told my executive team, I'm going to give you some budget. They had spent about $700,000, $800,000 by then. I'm going to give you some budget. Go and learn. Go and try. Go and test. But let's go back to pillar number 1 and 2. What are you going to experiment? What are you going to pilot on? He didn't have that kind of altitude to kind of design this the suggestion to go, or this mandate to go and test, into something that would be specific to each department. So they were all playing with something they felt comfortable with.
Right.
And these pilots ended up conflicting with each other instead of being additive, right?
Yes.
Because what engineering should have done is an agent or an AI that would uses product management information to turn that information into productization instead of trying to figure out what the roadmap looks like. They missed that point. And then sales and marketing, they should have looked at an AI agent to help them maximize price, maximize penetration, and exponential growth, looking at segmentation. Instead of that, they were again looking at what our competitors doing, what products are they launching, and they missed all the other side of things. So they were all doing product management jobs rather than doing their own jobs,
Right.
which is
So,
another big problem.
yeah. Let me ask you this. How often do you think that happens? What you just described. Is that happening 50% of the time out there?
No,
30%?
it doesn't.
Yes.
But no. Well, let me clarify my answer. No, it doesn't. But I think it will happen. Why? Because you already have this friction, right, between departments. That's they all
Right.
kind of depend on each other, but they also sometimes blame each other. Like
Right.
sales tends to blame marketing because the leads are bad,
Right.
and then manufacturing blames finance because some of the capital appropriations have not been approved on time, and engineering blames product management because what product management wants to build cannot be engineered. So now the engineers are saying, well, screw product management. I'm going to do my own research. And
Right.
sales are trying to develop their own leads. So you have this friction now, which is amplified, exacerbated by AI. So because why? Because it's actually in theory is easy, right? So
Sure.
sales can try to generate leads that belong to marketing. Engineering can try to put together a product roadmap that belongs to product management. And this may happen. This may continue to happen again, unless you have a CEO who has a strong vision. You have the governance in place, which also determines which each function has to do, right? And so it may happen. It may happen. It's another exercise I ask now my clients to do. I said, call 3 of your C levels. Call your VP of engineering, call your CTO, call your CFO, and ask them, hey, tell me, what is the company AI strategy? What is AI going to do for this company? And see whether they give you the same answer, right? And what
Right.
is the answer? So CFO is going to say, of course, AI is going to help me reduce costs, maximize revenue, and go in front of my investors with a great report. That's the CFO. The VP of engineering is going to say, well, it's going to help me, replace 3 engineers, or it's going to help me develop the next generation of product faster. The CTO is all going to be, oh, I need to look at my infrastructure and my cybersecurity. So everybody's really looking at AI from their sitting, right? From their chairs, from their roles. Nobody is really looking at the overall umbrella, which is what the CEO really should be thinking. Now you break it down into departments, and we go back to this friction that I was just talking about. So the executive team has their own agenda for AI. Each department now can play with AI and try to do their own game, and they have political things to gain. So you really need to come and bring this organizational um, positioning, that governance, and you need to define clear roles and objectives and clear priorities. The companies that are winning in this, which is the 5 to 10%, they are not going after every shiny object. They have maybe 1 or 2 AI initiatives that clearly align with the company's strategic plan, that are supported by the whole organization. They are all clear and as to what these initiatives are for, and they all know what is going to deliver, and they have clear KPIs, and they know what the next version of the operating system is going to look like. the new processes, the new KPIs, the new SOPs, and they also know what will have to be eliminated. These are the companies that are winning the AI race, and this is the 5 to 10% that you see in the reports.
Wow. So those are basically the steps that you would recommend to a CEO. That is like they know that AI matters, but they're really not sure where to start. So it's bringing in the pieces that you just spoke of, and then giving their team the right prompts, right, to go forward.
And the teams need to understand that it's not the best idea to develop 5 or 6 pilots at the same time. And I have challenged the executives about that. Why do you think that having so many experiments at the same time is a good thing? They don't have a good answer, right? So
Sure.
I challenge that. You cannot have 6 or 7 running at the same time because it's a waste of time. It creates this friction. At the end of the day, you spend money unnecessarily. And if those initiatives are not connected to an impact on the top line or bottom line, they're probably not going to be operationalized. And something else that is probably the ice on the cake is this. When all these organizations are busy experimenting with AI, let's not forget they still have a daily job to do.
Who's doing the work?
So sales still have to make sales calls. Marketing still have to go into the trade shows. Engineering has to to productize things, and manufacturing has to manufacture, because manufacturing is also playing with digital twins and things like this. And so now, manufacturing spends a lot of time in a new program that would allow them to, let's say, optimize manufacturing times and maximize uptime. But then they don't use it because they don't trust it, or they don't. They cannot turn it into their ERP and their MES, the manufacturing execution system. So they spend all this time, and they have to have all these extra meetings to actually figure out why the information was so wrong, because reality sometimes is not reflected by AI. So my AI is hallucinating. Let's have a meeting. Let's figure out why this is happening. Let's call the vendor. Now you're spending, I don't know, 30, 40% of your time trying to get the AI work, and who is doing your daily job? So what happens? There is another report. I can't remember who sent this other report, that to surprise of many businesses, AI is not reducing workload, it's increasing it. And
Wow.
all these employees are being overloaded, and they have shown burnout because they are working longer hours. Because the pilots are taking too much time. The pilots are giving them a lot of extra meetings to figure out why the pilots are not working. And they still have to do their jobs. So that's another good reason to try to limit the number of AI initiatives that you're running at the same time.
Right. And that comes all the way back to the very beginning when you said employees have some pushback, right? Because they know that AI could take some of their jobs. They know all of these things, and now you're saying it's also adding to their workload.
It is adding, and again, it was Gallup or Deloitte, or one of these companies who was really looking at how much time have we really gained through automation and through AI and decision making. But the reality is that at this stage, AI still really needs a lot of guidance and debugging and hand holding, and you still need to live with hallucinations. And the fact that a lot of AI is tested without governance leads to the development of AI which are not really doing what they're supposed to be doing. So you go and change the prompts, or maybe you switch from one platform to the other, because last year it was all about ChatGPT, this year is Claude, and then it's Manus, and then it's something else, and then every day you get an email from somebody who is telling you that they develop something which will do what you need with this new AI product. So now you're getting phone calls which distract you. And then tomorrow you get another email from McKinsey saying, oh, AI is proven to reduce, workload by 25%, right? That's the newsletter. The second bullet says, by the way, 95% of AI projects fail. So it's really contradictory newsletters that McKinsey sends you in the same email. And so people really get so distracted, so confused that they're saying, what platform? What does it mean really to claim success? How do I measure? And they get really, they operate at that level, and they don't have the time to think about, okay, why? Tell me again, why was I working on this AI pilot? What was I supposed to do with it?
Right.
Now you really need to reconnect with the pillar 1 and the pillar 2 of the 7 pillars. What's the strategy? What's the value creation? And score. CEOs should score their initiatives within the company if you have several competing. And on a scale from 1 to 10, how much each initiative supports pillar number 1 and 2. Right? Based on obviously specific KPIs. And then you prioritize from 1 to whatever number they have, and you only focus on the very first one. And you put all your efforts, all your programming, all your learning, all the trial and error, all your expertise into one as a team, as an organization. And then once you get that one right, then you can start using that expertise, those lessons learned with the others. Okay. But in the meantime, you didn't overload the whole organization. You didn't have conflicting opinions and intelligence. You didn't really spend so much money in so many things. And you learn as a whole, and you use only one set of data. So you see every pillar comes together to support a successful AI implementation.
So I had a coach who used to tell me all the time, slow down to speed up. So that's exactly what you're thinking of,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And obviously, at some point of this conversation, some of my clients and prospects say, okay, so Hector, are you telling me that I need to slow down or stop everything? And, stopping is not an option at this point, because your competitors aren't doing the same, right? They are all trying to figure out how to win the AI game. So you can't stop and say, I'm going to do nothing, right? Because your competitors at some point are going to get it right, and they are going to develop this exponential competitive advantage that will be very difficult to catch up with them. So you can't, but you really need to slow down and use this process, which is the one I really work my clients through, is through a 30-minute assessment. First, we go through current situation, identification of the largest opportunity and priorities, right? And then that turns into a 5-day audit. But you really need to start somewhere.
Yeah. I completely see that. And thank you. I mean, that's so true, because when you think about it, it's exactly what you came in here to talk to everybody about. It's like how you turn that initiative from, like, who knows what you want to call it. We call, to say it nicely, we called it a technical experiment, into something that drives the financial engine.
If you are the CEO, right, and I think you really need to think, what am I going to say in my next board meeting? You as a CEO, you walk into the board room, and you have everybody sitting around the table, and the president of the board will say, okay, so Kelly, tell us, you've been, working on AI for the last since the last meeting, or whatever it was, say maybe last year, we talked about AI, you spent $1.3 million. Tell us all the great things that you have produced in terms of, and what does the board care about? EBITDA, cost reductions, headcount, value, the value of the organization, any M&As, This is what they care. They don't care about, oh, we put together 3 dashboards and we automated content creation and we write the emails now with an agent. Oh, the board, do they really care about that? The board is going to say, tell me in millions, right?
Right,
The revenue increase, the top line, the percentage of EBITDA, grows. They don't really want to hear about the dashboard. So, as a CEO, when you talk about the first 2 pillars, think about you being in front of the board and explaining how the pillars 1 and 2 have materialized
that's
in
brilliant.
tangible results. That's
Right?
you remember that out of this
I mean,
conversation,
you just nailed it, right?
I mean,
When you're in front of the board.
yeah, of
Awesome.
course.
So, yeah, so let me ask you this. I don't want to keep you all day because I think this is a conversation that we could have for a very long time because it's so intriguing and you know exactly of which you speak. So tell me this, what do you want people to know? What's that one thing or those 2 things that you want everybody to know, CEOs especially, or those who speak to them, right? Going forward before we wrap.
So, well, I think that takeaway about the board, I think is probably the first thing they need to know. They need to remember that they will go sooner or later in front of a board to report about AI. So, as a CEO, you really need to talk about to make the connection between your AI efforts and the financial reports of your business. Okay, so you cannot really think about AI as a technical experiment. Remember this first. Second, you need to remember that just telling your organization go and experiment with AI and giving them money is not the best decision. You really should first connect your strategic vision for the company and connect AI as an enabler, like I said before, and then pick 1 or 2 initiatives with your executive team and only work on those 2 very strongly, very focusedly, but knowing that when those pilots turn into success, the next step that they need to remember, that you as a CEO need to remember is going to change your organization. Is going to require a new operating system, and that may eliminate steps, processes, meetings, communication, people. So it's going to depend on the organization, but you really need to be ready to change your organization. Your company after AI cannot continue to be the same, because if you don't, you may only use 20% of the potential of all your possibilities, because you're going to step in the way of AI. The new organization, going back to the pillars 3 and 4, really need to be considered, and your processes really need to be developed for AI and not the other way around. So I think these 3 things, to keep it simple, would be the ones that I want the CEOs to remember.
Yes. Yes. I love what you have to say. It makes so much sense. And I don't think I've listened to or I've listened to myself thinking like this before. And you're right. Like you just nailed it. And this is what CEOs, whether you're a CEO of a small company or the CEO of a multi-trillion-dollar company, this is how people need to be thinking, because AI is going to change the face of business, and it's how we work with it, right?
And you're right, so right, Kelly, actually, because and I've been thinking that it's just so easy to speak about AI. I just mentioned the McKinseys and the Deloittes and the Forbes and the Fast Companies. You get flooded with that information. But you also have dozens of influencers on YouTube talking about AI in any possible way. So there is so many versions of AI. The ones that come at 30,000 feet from the big consultants, the ones that come from all these influencers that are trying to make a buck through AdSense on YouTube, and everything in between. So that's why I made my mission really, what I learned in my last 20 years with all these corporations in terms of new technologies, leadership, and really setting, the vision and clarity about the direction before spending the money, right? That's why I'm so excited to talk about that and bring some clarity, at least from a, I would say, feet on the ground, walking the manufacturing sites, the manufacturing floor, and helping people really operationalize this thing. And then we need more. We need more people doing this, bringing clarity, real life use cases, identifying problems before they occur, bringing clarity. And this is going to really help all these companies go from the 5 to 10% success rate to 90%, hopefully in the future, right? And not the other way around as it is today.
Thank you. I mean, thank you so much. And everything you said makes so much sense to me. And we really, really appreciate having you here. And before we sign off, is there anything else you'd like to say, or are you good sending your CEOs out into the world with a little clarity?
So I think we have here, I mean, the message has been sent. I think there is a QR code here that you are sharing on screen, right? And that should take those who want to set a 30-minute call with me and schedule that on my calendar. I would love to walk all those people interested through a 30-minute assessment. I call it the AI readiness assessment. And I walk through the 7 pillars, actually. I have this process that in 30 minutes, I walk the CEOs through the 7 pillars, and through a self-assessment, we determine their level of readiness. And they walk away with some good recommendations as to how to keep moving forward. So I would encourage them to scan the the QR code, jump on a call, and walk away with some clarity. And then the next step that I offer is a 5-day audit that I do based on these 30 minutes, where I really work on site with these people, with the C-level, with the executive team, digging deeper into the what they call the discovery phase, the diagnose, and the prescription of how to really succeed in their business. And that can turn into a 90-day sprint, where really we turn this 5-day audit results into a 90-day, really get your hands dirty and make it happen, and start seeing in 90 days real results in your business.
Wow. Yeah, I guess, I mean, I can just sit here right now and thank you for saying that, because I can think of so many companies I know that have spent way more than 90 days trying to figure it out. And if you can get us there that quick, that is brilliant. And for everybody listening, I have gone through the assessment, and it's very good. So yes, thank you, Hector. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure you grab his information off the QR code. We'll also put it in our post, and we will share it on our LinkedIn page. And thank you so much again for being here.
Thank you, Kelly, for inviting me. See you next time.